outro. Come on.
Welcome back, everyone, to 30 Minutes of Life, the show where we talk about life for 30 minutes. My name is Ryan Anderson, and joining me to my left, as always, is the Skype man. Hype man.
Brad Learman.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Not much, dude.
So, have you been following all of this live-action craziness that's been going on around us lately?
Oh, yes, and I've been avoiding it since it started.
Okay, now most of it is on the Disney side. I think there's probably a couple other companies that are doing kind of the same thing, but it's really like this Disney reimagining of their properties, but pretty much doing a cartoon to film adaptation in live action. So to start off, which ones have you seen so far?
I have not seen any of the Disney remakes.
Not a single one. And I'm talking like Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin or any of those. You haven't seen a single one.
Nope.
Really? Okay, so that's interesting. So and not just because I live with Amanda and she's big on Disney, and I mean, like, I like Disney too. I think part of it started when, I don't know, it would have been maybe like Maleficent. I think that was like the first time I started noticing that they're like bringing these adaptations to life. It probably even goes back actually even further to like when they started with Alice in Wonderland. But yeah, you didn't even see Alice in Wonderland, did you, huh?
Nope.
Oh, man. So, actually, this is kind of like breaking news. Kind of breaking news. We're seeing, as of this week, a bunch of new photos that are showing that they're going to do Lady and the Tramp as live action. So that's pretty much what this episode is. For 30 Minutes of Life, we're going to be talking about, are they going too crazy with these live action remakes or updates or whatever you want to call them? So to start off, Brad, what has been your take overall with the live action stuff so far?
2 words: creative bankruptcy.
Oh, ouch. Okay.
Disney has not made an original IP in probably over 10 years.
So I'm with you, but I'm also kind of not with you. Do you count Pixar?
I'm not counting Pixar.
You're not counting Pixar, because I was going to say Pixar continues to churn out the original IPs.
Yeah, Pixar was a part of Disney, and
right.
When Pixar was creating new stuff under Disney's banner, Disney wasn't doing anything themselves.
Yeah.
Pixar was just a subsidiary and making original content.
Yeah. And believe me, I don't want to make this one big, like, let's shit on Disney kind of thing. Because, yes, I am kind of more Mr. DC, Warner Brothers, that kind of type. And that's just who I am. But I still love a lot of Disney stuff. Despite that fact, I think we still have a problem, though. Because, I mean, is it really a problem, though, if they're making these things and they're making like $1 billion? Like Lion King, with all due respect, Lion King is kind of why I wanted to get on this. It's not necessarily the Lady and the Tramp stuff of all this. It's Lion King making $1 billion. It's basically the same movie, and I think it has like low energy to it compared to the original. And I'm wondering, is it truly out of control, or is it just like our perception of it? Because if Disney can keep making money, they're going to keep doing it, and they're going to continue to reign on top and just crush all their competition beneath them. But is that a good plan of action? Because I honestly think we're going to start to see this drop off. I mean, yes, it's working now, but like the truth of the matter is I'm looking at Lady and the Tramp, and I love that movie growing up, as, you know, kind of schmaltzy as it might be. And the dogs just kind of look, I don't know, like they both look kind of trampy, if I'm being honest. And I'm not saying that's going to make or break this film, but I'm like, what really is the appeal here? Is Disney going
nostalgia.
to... Yeah. Is Disney
It's just
going to... Yeah. Well, I'm going to put this to you. Is Disney going to run out of IPs that they can make us nostalgic for, or that they can, you know, make into lifelike adaptations before we get kind of into like a yawn mode with all of it?
Eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually, yeah.
Because, well, okay, so they're saying that Aladdin is going to be a sequel, or at least, I mean, I loved Aladdin. I just want to put that out there for the record. I loved Aladdin. I actually really was surprised at how much I loved Dumbo, because Dumbo was at least original. I mean, it was an older IP that they brought in, but they did something that wasn't part of the original story. And it was, as I mentioned on one of the Nerd Rage Weeklies from the past, it almost felt like Tim Burton was trying to use that story to actually say something about the industry. And ironically, it almost seemed like it was how Disney was crushing its competition, and how like free and independent spirit should be embraced and all that. But I just wonder how much more of this is going to be enough. Like, it's weird to say it, but at the same time, we talk about superheroes. You know, for years, people would say, "Oh, the superhero medium, that's gonna die. It's like 5 years, 10 years tops." And here we are. What are like 29 years of this stuff? It's crazy and it's awesome, but I don't think when we were watching X-Men in the theaters or Spider-Man or Blade that this was ever what we imagined that the superhero genre was going to turn into. Do you think that there's enough life in this sort of property, these live action adaptations, that we could see them continue for years to come? Or is there going to be a drop off in, say, maybe 5 years?
I don't know about a drop off, but I think there's going to be a diminishing returns on it. It's kind of interesting. There was I don't remember when it was published, but there's a psychological study on the brain and nostalgia, and how when you're stimulating the brain with things that we remember that were really good,
Yeah.
say like you had some like TV show that you watched when you were growing up.
Oh yeah.
And then when they showed it to like people that were older again, or that were older, and they showed it to these people, they would see the brain flicker, and then they were reading that the brain was releasing endorphins and whatnot.
Right.
So what Disney is doing right now is a very delicate con. They're feeding nostalgia to its fan base by just remaking all of the old properties. There's nothing really new about the movies that are out now. They're basically the same story with a couple of little tweaks here and there. And again, I haven't seen them. I have no desire to. I've seen them all as animated movies, and they're all really good.
They are. It's true. I mean, some could maybe use a little adaptation. Some of them have some parts in their history that might not be popular among society today as we've continued to evolve and things like that. So it's nice that some things have more of a updated presence. Like the fact in Aladdin, there's a scene where Jasmine, she goes out and she has this very kind of like bold stance where she's not going to be like, talked down to and kind of shit on by Jafar the way that she does. Because there is a lot of these like damsel in distress kind of moments in movies. And I like that they took little bits and added something to it to make these characters more well-rounded rather than just like, it's the guy, he's the hero, and that's, it's just a very singular kind of story. I do like the additions, but I don't know that completely just retelling these things again and again and again is going to be absolutely necessary. I will say for you personally, though, I do think you should watch Dumbo, and I do think you should watch the Maleficent movies. I think they're just different, and I think they're just different enough takes that if you watch them, you'd be very surprised at how interesting and not like what you remember them being.
Hard pass.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, it's a curious thing to say the least, and I want it to be good. I want to kind of go back to your point about nostalgia, because 90s nostalgia is pretty much everywhere right now, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know how much you're seeing in the Midwest, but I've seen enough of it in the last like 2 years that we've been out here in California, and I'm not hating on it by any means, but like I just watched a music video before we got on here. Someone called Doja Cat who had a really ridiculous video that I saw maybe a year ago that I don't even want to repeat it on air. How stupid it was. But like, I don't have a problem with her, but I get why she's becoming popular, and it's because she's playing up on 90s nostalgia. A lot of these, female rappers, even some of the male rappers too, like the mumble rappers, all they do is basically repackage themselves in like 90s fashion. You can barely understand what they're saying, but the videos look cool, and they actually look like they were shot in the 90s too. And you kind of see that, and I even find myself, like I was watching, I was like, yeah, I wish they would do more of this. Yeah, this would be great. But then I was thinking about it, the music was just garbage. Like, I love rap, and I love even some of the modern rap, but like this shitty recycling and retooling of what was already once good, it kind of ruins the thing that I once loved. Even though in my mind, my brain's telling me, oh yeah, you like this thing. You're going to like this new version of that same thing. It doesn't always work. And that's how I kind of felt about Lion King. If there's one that I can definitely recommend you don't see, it's that. Like, I wanted to do a Lion King reacts, but obviously since you haven't seen it, that also makes it harder. But I didn't want to do it just to shit on the film. I wanted to point out why a movie like that didn't need to exist the way that it did. Like, it's cool if you want to, repackage it, or you want to do something new that adds something to the material. I get that. But at the same time, that movie was basically shot for shot, beat for beat, the same movie, except, like, for example, obviously you don't know this, and for those who haven't seen the movie, when it gets to the singing numbers, no one actually really sings except for maybe Donald Glover and Beyonce. But it's only like 2 numbers with Beyonce and like 3 with Donald Glover, and they're towards the end of the movie. So all the fun, like I Can't Wait to Be King and all that stuff, everyone just sings throughout the whole thing. And it's like, no one said see there or whatever. No one said stop that. And like, it's so dry and uninspiring that I was just like, this is still a musical number, right? And all the life and the energy that made the original such a thrill for me, not just as a kid, but even watching it again as an adult. It's not even cooked up in nostalgia. It's just that it's a good movie. The new one just felt so lifeless, and it hurt me to watch. I should note, as a side note, Amanda and I just got back last night from watching Hobbs and Shaw. She was like, okay, I let you sit through that. Or, I mean, you ended up sitting through that. So, you know what? Fine. I will go and see Hobbs and Shaw with you. And she like fell asleep halfway through the movie. Real quick, have you seen Hobbs and Shaw? I never got to ask you this.
No, I do want to see it though.
It's okay. That's something that has run its course.
It seems like it's kind of the typical partner up action movie.
If you ever see it, I would be more than happy to do a review on that one or just a reacts. But man, that movie, that's a case of a franchise becoming so full of itself that it needs to be either put away for a while or just rebooted completely, because there's just I don't know what these movies have anymore for them, and that's a case of it too. I don't know. So when it comes to these live action adaptations, what would you rather see Disney do? Like, would you see them try and make sequels of the cartoon ones? Because they've done that. Like Return of Jafar was one. I kind of mentioned that they're going to try and do that because Aladdin made so much money, which I can't wait to see that. Even though it is going to be, another live action version. I love the Return of Jafar growing up as a kid. So I think some of these work, but I think they should be handled in the sense of like, there's a genuine demand for this, and something we're going to talk about that happened today that we'll bring up on Nerd Rage Weekly is like one of those things where it's fans have been clamoring for this sort of thing to happen for like 10 years. I don't remember anyone asking for Lady and the Tramp to be made in live action, let alone how the logistics of that are going to work. Are the 2 dogs going to talk to each other? Are they just going to, do the same things that they did in the original movie? I don't know what their idea is, but it just, my question really is, who's asking for this, I
mean, the best way that Disney can get away from just retelling all of their old stories is just start making new stuff, make some original stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Disney was the birthplace of some of the best animation back in the 70s or so.
It was. It truly was.
And all that stuff was, it was all a risk.
Yeah.
And right now, Disney is such a huge corporation now that I think they're so risk averse. They're not going to make anything new. I mean, look at everything that they're acquiring. They acquired Marvel. Yeah. And most of the time, they stay out of Marvel because Kevin Feige has that running like a well-oiled train.
Yep, he's got that shit on lockdown.
And then they bought Lucasfilm, which some would say they've done a good job. Some people would say, like myself, they're kind of underwhelming.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, if you didn't say you, I was gonna say, well, I think I know who you're talking about.
Oh yeah. And then newly acquired Fox. We have yet to see what they're going to do with Fox, but is there really going to be a lot of new stuff, or are they just going to try to recycle all of their old stuff and just kind of make it new?
Well, let me give you something as kind of like a counterpoint here, because I think it shouldn't just be like, well, they shouldn't do it and that's that, and I don't want to just completely give one side to the argument. So I'm looking at something that just came on Netflix a little while back that Amanda had on. I've never seen it before, but I found myself really kind of enjoying it. I wish I had watched it from beginning to end, and that was The Princess and the Frog. Now, that was a new IP that they introduced, and I want to say that year was, later 2000s, maybe even 2010. I don't have the year in front of me, but the point being, that's a new property. That one only grossed a grand total of $267 million worldwide. Now, you compare that next to something like Beauty and the Beast or Lion King that are up in the, near $1 billion mark, and you have to wonder, is that model working for them? And you have to also respect it from a business standpoint, because if they're not making that money, someone else is going to, or they're going to get shut down by, the Netflixes and the streaming companies of the world who would start to overtake them. For me personally, if they had stuck to that model and they hadn't made so much money with Disney doing Marvel and Star Wars and all that stuff, maybe we would have never got that Fox buyout, which would have made me personally happy. But is this a good business model for them if they keep creating original IPs and they don't turn out a good profit for them?
Well, that's always the risk too.
And as a company, can you afford to make that risk year after year before someone says, all right, this guy's out, he's clearly not making us the money that we need to. And as a business, I think we have to kind of go in a direction that is going to make us money. So
I think the amount of money that the Star Wars franchise and Marvel have made thus far should kind of counterbalance the kind of more risky, more new stuff that they may come up with.
Yeah, totally.
But again, we haven't really seen that. We've merely just seen repackaged stuff from their animated library.
Right, and you could also make the argument that with Marvel, they're not necessarily brand new IPs. They are new film properties, but technically there was a Captain America movie, there was a Hulk movie, there were all these ones that existed like in the 70s, even if they were TV movies, and there were they were comic book and cartoon properties before they made it their way into live action. So in some respects, you could even consider those to be live action adaptations.
True, but the exposure that, those minor early Marvel movies have compared to, your typical run-of-the-mill Disney animated movie, it doesn't even compare.
Yeah, when Lion King first came out, though, it made tons of money, and it only stood to make more money when it got re-released in this, new packaging that they basically wrapped it up in. So I don't know. Obviously, yes, there are years and years of history that were compounded on and then obviously added to people's expectations for the live action movies. But it is interesting to note that, this isn't like we talk about new IPs. It's, like the Alien franchise, for example. When it first appeared in the 70s, I want to say it was late 70s when it first came out. That was a wholly new IP. That came in, and it didn't make a ton of money, but it was a hit enough that they were going to make sequels and things like that. And it was only as the franchise grew and then it continued to make money. So is it a case of maybe we need to bite the bullet on these first entries with new IPs like Princess and the Frog or something like that until they start to actually turn a profit? Or do you go, hey, we need to just go in, throw the 90s nostalgia or whatever nostalgia against the wall and just hope that the live action coat will just make people come in droves? Because it's a hard thing to decide between one or the other. And I understand the need by these big studios to want to go with, hey, this thing's going to get us money the first time in. We don't have to invest in 2-3 movies to really make this thing a big deal. So I kind of see their point, but ethically and like from that respect for film and original content, like, I have to kind of shit on it at least a little bit. So I don't know. Do you want them to just keep focusing on IP, or is there some sort of blend that they could do that's still respectful, but also isn't, bastardizing our childhoods?
I mean, if they want to stagger it, like, they come out with a live action adaptation and then they come out with a new property the same year.
Yeah.
I don't see that as a problem, because at least they're trying to they're trying to innovate a little bit rather than just going back to the library and just going, hey, let's just put this out, just make it newer.
I was gonna say, if they came out in the same year, that might be a little bit of a surplus of that same IP just to try to make a buck. And maybe you wouldn't, like when they try and do movies back to back, like the Matrix movies, when they did 2 and 3, weren't they in the same year, if I'm not mistaken? Or maybe I'm thinking of a different film franchise, but usually when they try and do the 2 in the same year, that actually cuts into their profits as a whole, because people are like, oh yeah, we just saw it this year. And some people don't even want to go out unless they're like diehards for it. So I wonder if putting out a cartoon and then a live adaptation of an IP is, I mean, it could work, but I almost wonder if that might be overkill in some respects. But there's got to be a good way to balance it out. I think maybe if you listen to the fan base, perhaps, and gave it like every, couple of years, and you're like, oh, you know what? We haven't seen Fox and the Hound in so long. It's such a beloved classic. It would be kind of cool to see that. And then everyone starts rumbling about it on Twitter or wherever. And then like almost like a movement starts for it. And like, you know what? Let's do Fox and the Hound. Let's make that movie. Not do Dumbo, Aladdin, Lion King, and I'm sure, oh yeah, Maleficent's coming out this year, the sequel. So yeah, they're kind of overkilling it with these things. And I feel like, like Marvel didn't do that. Marvel did like maybe 1 to 2 a year. We're kind of getting into that 3 ballpark as the norm now. But even that, I think like Marvel's like, hey, we're going to kind of pump the brakes a little bit here on that. Because it is going to become overkill for even those of us who are diehards, because they're like, how many Marvel movies did I see this year? And we're all going to go and see them. We're all going to enjoy it, but you still want to have that fun and enjoyment factor to them. And by the time I was done with Lion King, I was just like, I don't know that I feel the enjoyment that I did when I was watching Aladdin. Like I really genuinely enjoyed that, but I feel like if we keep doing like 4 in a year, we're going to lose that excitement for this stuff. Even those of us who actually enjoy this, who aren't Brad. Yeah. I really do hope that you at least give some of them a try. And I don't think they're all the worst thing in the world. I just think that we're taking all the water out of this well that's left in it. And I don't want it to be that. There's plenty for everyone, plenty to go around. And I just want to see it taken slowly and appreciated for what it's worth. Not to do bad mouth CGI like they did with Lion King, because I'm sure if someone had taken their time, they could have gone in and gone, hey, maybe there's something we could have tweaked here and made it a little bit better. I mean, it's no Sonic the Hedgehog where they have to completely redo the entire thing, but you have to look at these things and go, is this going to inspire the next generation of kids or whoever that see this maybe for the first time and want to, pass it on to their kids or whatever, and be that next thing, because maybe the cartoons don't hold up for some people. Like I remember when Phantom Menace and all the prequel trilogies came out for Star Wars, and people were like, I don't know that I want to even watch those old. I mean, they were kids younger than us, and they're like, I don't want to watch those old Star Wars movies. I grew up with the prequels, and I like those, So obviously, at some point, you should probably get around to watching the original trilogy. But at some point, these younger generations, they're going to look at these old cartoons and like, why do I want that when I got this cool live action one that I could watch anytime I want? So I do think that there needs to be some sort of appreciation for when they do the live action, but it can't just be bled dry either. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's really where we'll wrap this all up. Any other final thoughts with live action ones? Things that you don't want to see them ever do in live action?
Things I don't want them to do?
Anything that's sacred to you?
Not necessarily sacred.
Well, you know what I mean.
Pocahontas might be an awkward one to do.
Oh, that's happening. That's happening.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some other ones.
Mulan's coming.
Mulan's already coming out. 101 Dalmatians has already been done years ago.
I actually liked 101 Dalmatians. I thought that was a good, genuine movie. And maybe it's because I like Jeff Daniels, but...
it was okay.
And Glenn Close is great, too. You know what? They actually are going to do 101 Dalmatians, but it's going to be like Maleficent is. It's going to be, what's her name? Emma Stone as Cruella de Vil. Yep. No. It's called Cruella.
Close.
It's called
Glenn
Cruella.
Close. No, Glenn Close is Cruella de Vil.
Oh, I know. I totally agree. But see, and that's part of the argument too. Is like, we got that, and you're like, man, that was a good movie. Glenn Close, all that stuff. But what if someone else comes in who's part of the younger generation? They never saw that movie. They never watched the animated version, and they go in and they watch this and like, man, Emma Stone's the best. She's such a great Cruella de Vil, and I can't wait to see that. Like, maybe there is something to be said for that generation who grows up and genuinely loves this stuff. It could be good. I still reiterate what I said before. I just don't want to see it bled dry, so that we anytime they put it up on screen, you just go, another one of these, That's what I don't want to happen. But yeah, I didn't mean to shit on your thing there.
No.
Because I do genuinely love 101 Dalmatians. The other one, I've been saying this kind of like back and forth with Amanda, because she's really excited about Mulan. I feel like Mulan is kind of the case of Lion King, where I just feel like the energy isn't there. I mean, and part of it is because the cartoonized version, that animated style, you got, I think it's like Mushu the dragon, and he's cracking jokes, and it's very bright and colorful. And this one's almost trying to be like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon with its level of seriousness. And I appreciate it that it's trying to do something different, but I don't know. My excitement for it was in the colorfulness of that culture and what they brought alive in that. And the same thing with Pocahontas. Like, I want to see, if they do it, I want to see that level of color and vibrance, all the colors of the wind and all that. I want to see that come alive. Because if it doesn't have that, like, what is it trying to do other than, I mean, it's nice that we get another female protagonist who's standing up for herself, and that always great. I know everyone was shitting on the fact that they're going to do Little Mermaid, but I think that's kind of ridiculous because it's a fish, not like her skin color really matters. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Little Mermaid thing. That was a little layered for you there. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I don't think that one necessarily needs to happen either, but like, if they're going to do it, cool. Like, I mean, again, I don't want to go into next year and find out they're making like 4 or 5 of these, And take your time. You don't have to make a ton of these. You don't have to just do Dumbo just because you have the property. Do it because it's good. And actually, I did think Dumbo was good, but clearly their attempt to try and be different from the material caused them to not make as much money as, say, Lion King or Aladdin did. So I don't know. Maybe people just want to be spoon-fed nostalgia. Maybe there's something to that too. I don't know. But we're not going to solve all of life's problems in one day. What do you guys think? Do we need more live action? Do we need a little less live action? Are we banking too much on nostalgia? We'll put it to you guys. Let us know, as always. Hit us up on nerdragepod@gmail.com. You can always hit Brad up on Facebook or myself up on Facebook. We have the Nerd Rage Podcast there. I am on Twitter. I think Brad might exist on Twitter, even though he's pretty much ghosted his profile. We do have the Nerd Rage Pod there. And you can hit me up at Ryan's_ramblings if you want to. Check out the Patreon. Check out our TeePublic store. We're making all cool new designs for t-shirts and things. I am going to be at Silicon Valley Comic-Con all 3 days this weekend. So if you guys want to come out and meet me there, I will be doing some interviews, talking to a couple other people and just trying to be a part of some panels. But I will be, chatting with people and handing out free merchandise. So if you guys want to come by and say hi, don't hesitate. It's all good. And I think, other than that, I think that's it for this week, honestly. So for the Nerd Rage Podcast and 30 Minutes of Life, I've been Ryan Anderson.
And I'm Brad Learman.
And we'll see you guys again another time.
Yeah. Uh-huh.